At the beginning, if you could, Petr, just give me a quick introduction about what is your background, what have you done so far up until today?
So yeah, thanks for inviting me for this. My background is mainly banking, and within banking and fintech specifically, marketing, product development, and strategy. So both in Europe, but largely in the Middle East, and largely in the United Arab Emirates.
Mhm. Awesome. So basically, this whole thing is about building. This whole report is about building a neobank and how to do it to help first-time founders, or even not first-time founders. If any other company wants to tap into the new market, how to build this new neobank, right? So usually, the first thing that people would do, ideally, or maybe the better question is, what do you think are the first question the person should ask themselves, or what the first things that they should do?
I think building a neobank itself is not an idea, right? That's just
Mm,
a way to maybe implement an idea. So the idea, should meet the, basics. It needs to answer, two strategic questions. One is, you know, where I want to play, and how I want to win. Uh, so neobank is just a way to do that. So I'll give you an example. Let's say I want to address the needs of small and medium enterprises. I want them to be able to borrow easily and grow their business. And I want to do this easily, and maybe through I don't know, a merchant proposition, whatever the idea is. Uh, and then neobank is a way to go. Could be a way to go. Not always it is the right way. And there are lots of different models. Um, in Europe, for example, because of PSD2, you can basically create a bank without a single dollar on your balance sheet, because you just create the experience and connect it to the existing banks. So it's in a way much easier, but for the same reason, that space becomes more crowded. Um, in the Middle East or elsewhere, the the initial challenge will be regulatory.
uh,
Um, and and different regulatory frameworks would approach this differently. Sometimes you just have to become a bank, with all the capital requirements and so on. In some jurisdictions, there are alternative licensing frameworks like PSP, payment service provider, or a digital bank, or sometimes you can go through the banking as a service route.
hmm Okay, now this is the thing, right? So at the beginning, I need to understand what is the problem I'm solving, correct? And then how would you validate the idea, right? So if I wanna build a new bank, I'm like, okay, so probably there is this target audience that I think they have the problem. Maybe I have the same problem that they have, but I'm one person. Maybe I will speak to friends and family. But how would you validate it that this is worth doing?
So I'll give you an example. We in my the last bank that I worked for in the UAE, we we decided we decided to build a bank for teenagers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so that was the idea, and we had some hypothesis, that basically parents want their children to have their own financial independence. They want their children to be financially literate, and then the kids want to feel financially independent, and be empowered, right? So those were the hypotheses, and that's guided the initial concept, which we built as a prototype, or as a concept idea, and then we went and tested it in the market. So we tested both the general idea. We had to select, because there were two target audiences, the parents as well as the
Mm-hmm.
children. So we spoke to both, um, and then okay, it looked like they would be interested to do that. They gave us some clues in terms of the positioning, the kind of tone of voice that we would use, in marketing and in the marcom, and then we build it. We followed, and I would certainly recommend to follow the MVP rule, and not to and be brave in launching an MVP product. So don't go too far without testing it in the market. So we defined MVP, which was both minimum and viable, and then and we shared it with with the target audience, and it went well. We actually hired a group of kids that we called them the founders, the
Mm-hmm.
founder circle, and they formed a community that would give us an ongoing feedback on the product, and we even gave them a power to prioritize certain features.
Interesting. So you actually did a user testing even before going live. You had beta users, and that was the way how you were validating the idea. Just out of curiosity, I'm thinking right now. This is one thing I haven't discussed with anyone. So let's say I'm by a big company, right? I've got the money. So let's say I'm in this phase when I'm testing it with the kids, right? And then we found out, okay, hey, kids actually don't care, right? Or you find out that the hypothesis is not the one that you had ideally or initially, or it's different one, or maybe what is better? Is it better to kill the whole idea? Is it better to make a spin-off or make a new proposition, or what would you do in such a situation?
I think it's important that you know why you test things, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes people test for really silly reasons, just to basically have content for internal presentations glorifying your great idea,
Yeah.
right? So then people will filter out only the insights that kind of fit their original idea. But if you are really honest, and if you really want to get value from the testing, then you have to be prepared to be wrong,
Yeah.
uh, and then act on it. And sometimes you have to kill the whole proposition. Sometimes you have to reposition it. I'll give you an example. In our case, for example, we were testing. That was not the product, but it was the naming of it,
Hmm.
the naming of the bank, and then the some of the imagery that we were going to use in promoting the bank. And we originally thought that kids would relate to kind of like a gaming, for example. They would relate to gaming ideas, and they would relate to something that really fits their world. And
Hmm.
that was a complete failure.
Hmm.
And what we found out was but the management, they also felt, yeah, we should do like gamers,
Yeah.
um and then they said, no, that's not what we want to do. The kids were like, guys, you're giving me, I'm 14 years old, you're giving me a banking account, and the banking account makes me feel like I'm an adult. Okay,
Yeah.
so don't talk to me like I'm a gamer, right? Because that's, I already have that, right? You are giving me basically a ticket to to being an adult, right?
Yeah.
So they wanted an adult treatment. They wanted adult imagery. So we even tested different designs of cards. They didn't want anything crazy. They actually
Hmm.
wanted something slick, something that looks professional, and so on. That was very counterintuitive to where we started.
Hmm.
I mean, we did retain some of the playfulness of it. Like, for example, the kids were able to pick from different car designs, right? But none of the car designs were like, kids at a party, or, that kind of stuff. So that was a very sobering moment. But and because of that, we were successful later on. But there were a lot of people that were like, no, you're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, you need to do the gaming thing. Interesting. So you need to be agile and flexible. Okay, so you basically tested with the kids. You got the positive feedback. You had to adjust some ideas, marketing, etc. And then eventually you said, okay, we need to build MVP. This is something that the kids will play with, and once we have confirmed the thesis, let's do it, right? Have you thought about what were the thinking behind? Okay, we will use banking as a service, or maybe in which cases you would use banking as a service? You would apply for, if you are talking about Europe, EMI license, or in which cases you would go, which I don't think is really necessary when you're a launching company, for a banking license.
Yeah. In our particular case, it was an easy choice because we were already a bank. So we were just basically launching, we called it a digital bank, but it really was a segment proposition. And you see this quite a lot um, in the region or elsewhere, where basically banks launch a digital bank and they call it a digital bank. And then, but it's really a segment proposition. But I think you have the right to call it a bank as opposed to just a product if you have dedicated people, you have dedicated brand, you have dedicated experience, you have dedicated products. If you can, answer yes to all of it, then yes, you are a bank.
Mm-hmm.
Right? You don't have to have a separate balance sheet. You don't have to have a separate, numbering. But if you answer yes to all these four questions, then you can, yes, you can call yourself a bank. In our case, it was basically, we just leveraged the license of the bank. And but in other countries, you, like, we were talking to a bank in a specific geography in the Middle East, and they were running a proposition which they didn't know how to run it properly. And we said we will take over and we will rebrand it, and we will basically turn your proposition into a banking as a service, and we will let you, a bank, you clearly don't know how to do this, so we'll let you make money if we make money. So we will pay you when we get customers. So for every active customer per year, we will pay you a BaaS fee. So that's a completely different model, obviously. But the banking as a service model is a good one because it allows you to quickly test the hypothesis, and if it works, you can always spin off.
This is real interesting because right now I had meetings, online interviews with founders of neobanks. Like, let's say they were not backed by a bank or didn't have the license. This is interesting because you can directly use the license of the bank and, for example, do microloans or something like that. So you don't even have to think about banking as a service, right?
Yeah.
Finding a solution provider who would provide you with the licenses. What about the tech stack, right? So right now, if you have your own license that your own bank, gave it to, what is the tech stack that you're going to use? Are you still going to use providers? Or are you going to build your own specific tech stack, or what would you do?
I think, I mean, people would take different approach, but typically the core banking is you don't play with it.
Uh-huh.
You use something that's really standardized, something that is, you don't have to, that's not where you differentiate, right? Where you differentiate is the front end and the customer experience. So
Okay.
and the way you actually differentiate use because of the tech stack is the flexibility that you have, so that
Mm.
you will not spend too much time changing the architecture sometimes mid-air. That could be very costly. So take something simple or something robust at the back end. It can be a very boring back end, as long as it's robust and stable, and then create a strong internal agile team that will actually build the front end from scratch.
Uh,
Because that's you want to, as a digital bank, you want to control the customer experience.
mm.
Whether you run the back end, the core banking system, whether it runs off cloud, whether it runs locally, none of this matters.
Interesting.
Everything else, because where you really engage the customer is only at the front end and the product proposition, obviously.
Yes. Makes sense. What about those, so there was a big boom of neobanks, and then eventually they started to sell their own tech. And for example, right now, what I see is basically front end proposition, then the back end proposition, and also end to end basically solution, mobile apps, internet banking in one package, right? What do you see pros and cons of these, approaches? If I buy the core banking or banking as core banking as a service, I will have it from one company. I will build my own front ends, or there I will get a front end from Backbase, let's say, or Plumber or any other provider. I think there's a bank IT, or this one solution, because it will enable us to be really fast in the market, the
Yeah.
end to end.
Yeah. Okay. I'm a marketeer and a product developer, so I don't really run the tech organization, and I don't know much about it. But it is important that I would think that if you want to start a neobank and you buy the front end like a ready-made, maybe just white label somebody else's app, and then buy also the back end, whether from the same company or not. I mean, what else? What is the new thing that you're bringing,
Yeah.
right? So so I don't really believe in white labeling the front end, because then you're just doing something that somebody else has done in the past. I don't think you have a kind of a license to start a new bank. If you want to be a new bank, your front end has to be really really good.
Yeah.
And just recycling somebody else's idea from a different market. You can learn from them, right? They can help you, but it has to feel like it's for the customer of that very market.
It's true. It's true. At the end of the day, that's where the customers see you and engage with you. They don't care about the back end, data, exactly as you said. On the other hand, I spoke with the guy from Ribbon and with Zazu, and they said interesting thing is like, okay, if you see this as building something really really fast, getting and testing and validating, then probably white labeling this thing could be a solution, right? But all of them mentioned the front end is the one, the way how to differentiate yourself, as well as the features, right? And the features, that's my another question. So, right, how do you come up with a new feature right now? So you've got cards, you've got accounts, you've got wallets, but Starling, Revolut, all these ethics, this is here for a long time. So how do you come up with a new something that is different?
I mean, there are different. If you are entering the market, there are different kind of pockets of opportunities you may want to explore. But I mean, do you want to go the B2B way? Do you want to build a super app, which is basically, bringing other, basically building ecosystem beyond financial services, right? Bringing, I don't know, travel, bringing taxi, bringing food, into it. That could be a way to differentiate. You can do a B2B focusing on small businesses. You can, you can focus on a specific, use case as an anchor, like for example sending money home, right? That could be a good anchor. That could be an anchor product. But but that itself is not an innovation yet, in my opinion, unless you really come up with something new. I think the true innovation comes when you really, I know this sounds like a motherhood statement, but really really understanding the customer and understanding the pain points.
Yeah.
And then coming up with something that address the pain points. I know some banks use customers as kind of a co-creators. I don't really believe that's I think it's more of a PR stunt as opposed to a real thing, because customers are not in the business of designing products. They are in the business of articulating their pains. So if we really understand their pain, then it is our choice as product designers to address it, be inspired by them, do something with it. It doesn't have to be a pain. It could be a need or even a future need.
No, but something that they are willing to use and at the end of the day willing to pay, right? So if I'm now I know my tech stack, I know my niche, I know the proposition and the features that I want to include. So I build it and I have everything ready. Now I need to have my users, right? So what would you do? What would be the next steps to acquire your first users and then the first million and then first 100 million users?
Yeah. So first you want to, I think one thing that we've learned is that when you launch a product, you think you know your product, right? You build it. You think
Uh-huh.
you know it inside out, right? But the truth is you don't, right? Because the product gets really when it's exposed to customers, only then does it become a product. So you don't know how it will be done. You think you know, but customers might use, out of the 5 features, they might use 2, and they, and that may be a killer or they, so so what we found extremely useful is that when we launched in a friends and family basis, basically
Mm-hmm.
first in kind of a test flight, beta, whatever you want to call it, um, you want to really, really understand how the customers are perceiving it,
Hmm.
right? So collect as much data as you possible as you can, both qualitative and quantitative. Qualitative meaning, do focus groups, do in-depth interviews, really watch them, read your Google, like App Store comments, but you know find out why customers are doing this. So you will know that customers are maybe dropping at this part of the funnel, but you don't know why, right? Sometimes you actually don't know, so you have to actually talk to them and find out what's happening, and you'll be surprised what it is. So we call it the accelerated learning period. So we basically collect everything, and we don't know whether it will be useful, but
Yeah.
we really want to understand our product, which is
Uh-huh.
strange, right? Because we didn't buy it, we build it, but we still want to understand it. And then when we are confident, we understand these customers like it, these customers don't like it. You make the changes you want, and then you basically turn up the volume. But it's
Hmm.
but I think the digital bank, the neobanks, sometimes they have a very good digital marketing. So the
Hmm.
performance marketing side of things, work really well. The product is ready for performance marketing, so it can be pushed. They've got all the mark tech, that you can think of. But you are a financial player, right?
Hmm.
People what you need to address is the first concern that people will have, and which is trust. So people need to believe in you. So people will maybe will try new game, right? People will try new perfume, but people will not just try a new bank,
Yeah.
and will not definitely not put serious money there. So you want to definitely be seen, build the brand. If you have an association with an existing bank, you
Hmm.
know don't be shy. um, you know Trust is very important. It will not win the game, but it can lose the game.
Yes. No, so totally makes sense. This was one of the questions that haven't been actually answered throughout past 5 years when there was the boom of neobanking. How neobanks can build a trust and how it because that's a difference between, exactly as you said, having my main account at Raiffeisen Bank or Lloyd's, or having my main account at the Revolut, right?
Yeah,
And Revolut is here almost 10 years, or I don't even know how many years, and I still wouldn't put there my lifetime savings, right?
yeah, yeah, exactly.
And this is so performance marketing. So ads on Facebook. That's on large scale. On the other hand, I spoke or I listened to a podcast with the CMO of Revolut, and he was like, okay, so first of all, we need to decide which type of customers do we want, and then we decide which channel. Because, for example, TikTok is not the right customers we want because they don't have, for example, the money or whatever, right? So what do you think are the main channels that these marketing or marketing channels that these neobanks should use to acquire new customers besides paid X for ads, for example?
Um, yeah, it's a good question. I mean, you know, uh, you want I mean, the digital marketing is, of course, the performance marketing is great because you can test everything, right? You can test
Exactly.
micro segments, you can A/B test things. Now, with the emergence of AI and AI generated content,
Mhm.
you can get too close to segment of one. Basically, everybody gets a different ad. So
Interesting. Mhm.
that is of course possible, but I would still focus on. Kind of amplifying the goodwill that you will create in the market.
Mhm.
So if you create a really good customers, then amplify if you create a great customer experience and people
Mhm.
will share it, uh, and do it as authentic as possible, then do that. So I think amplifying good customer feedback is a good one. People kind of trust each other. If it's authentic, then it would be good. Influencers, use them sparingly, use the right
Yeah.
ones, because the wrong ones can kill you. um, then uh, I would definitely, yeah, avoid events. I think events are a waste of time. Like a customer, fairs basically
Yeah.
are good for investors, right? But
Uh-huh.
to get a customer, I don't think that makes sense. But if you are a neobank, you one of the choices you will make, are you want to be kind of a neutral neobank, basically, that doesn't stand for anything, just to have a very smooth customer experience, which I would caution against. But if you are a neobank, you want to have a ethos that people will resonate with,
Yeah.
right? So you have neobank and figure out what it is, right? For example, in our bank for teenagers, we wanted kids to be smarter. We are basically building smarter future customers. That
Mhm.
was our kind of a ethos. And we told the parents, hey, give us your kids and we will return them 3 4 years later, and they will be financially literate, right? And we will make them more successful in their life. That's a very different proposition than if you're saying, with us the payments are easy and fast, right?
Yeah.
So you want to, as a neobank, you want to stand for something ideally ethical, or I mean, the first neobanks, their ethos was, or their identity was, a negative identity against the established banks. So basically, they said, "Come to us because we are not the old banks," right? But the old banks don't really exist anymore, and that ethos doesn't really work anymore. So you want to be better than that. You actually need to differentiate against the other neobanks, right?
Mhm.
Because they will, like, if you look at the UK, you know, half of the millennials now have a neobank as a main bank, right? So
Mhm.
nobody really wants, yeah. So that's the traditional banks are not necessarily your competitors, right? So you want to differentiate, and I mean, at the end of the day, the payments will always be the same. um, and you can say, okay, you will approve a loan in a day, in an hour, in a minute, in a second. How far can you go with that,
Mhm.
right? But for example, what if you are a bank that would say, okay, fine, we approve your loan in a minute, but if we think that that the loan is not good for you, we will actually talk you out of it.
Mhm. Mhm. Mhm.
You understand
Yeah.
the difference. So right now I'm making an ethical stand, and that's what some of the digital banks were able to articulate, but also deliver on. So you have to stand for something, and then whatever it is that you stand for, use it as a platform through develop a platform through which you will communicate this ethos. So it could be a global award for ethical banking, for example,
Yeah.
uh, and use that as a content creation and an engagement platform.
Interesting. It actually sounds like one type of person would say, "Hey, you need to do exactly what you were saying. You need to one specific at one person. You need to get on this such a level. You need to do performance marketing, SEO, and all that stuff." But from what you are saying, it sounds like you need to create a really amazing product, and the marketing comes secondary, right? So some people would think, okay, hey, we need to get as many clients as possible to have KPIs for our investors.
Yeah.
But if you maybe have different mindset, which I didn't think about until now, until I was listening to, sounds like, okay, if you have amazing product, you don't have to care that much about the marketing channels or whatever, because people will bring, and then they will come, and then they will use actually your cool thing. Besides having really cool brand, also you need to have a really good brand that stands for something.
Yeah.
One really good experience that you have, and I think it's really unique, because a lot of founders of neobanks were coming from, basically they were building their own neobank, right? But you come from background working in a big bank that was building a neobank, right?
Yeah.
But we see actually that a lot of big banks trying to build a neobank or digital bank outside of the brand that they had, it didn't work out, and a lot of those collapsed, right? Like Bo, for example. What do you think were the main reasons, and how to avoid this?
I think one of the reasons is that the sometimes it would be done from the for the wrong reason. Like, for example, there were at certain point, every bank, including my former bank, were trying to do a bank for millennials, believing there's a certain, and we understand that the millennials, and we will build a bank that the millennials will love. And at the end, very few of them succeeded. There's basically it just the millennials didn't really want something else. They wanted a really good experience, but they didn't necessarily want a millennials targeted brand. So some of it was also, the banks were forced internally. Let's do something, right? All these banks around us, and so what they did was, and then they had some overpaid consultants coming and say, hey, here are the spaces you can fill, you can do a millennials targeted bank, and we'll make a very cool brand, and let's launch it and pay us $50 million for the idea. So that was some of the problem. The other problem is that the banks have very strong internal culture and legacy systems. I think that's the number one issue, that basically and sometimes you try to kind of ring fence teams inside the bank that would focus on these new cool ideas, but the rest of the banks would basically sabotage it and not support it, and find a way of killing it, because it's like getting a new element into your body, and your immune system will kind of spit it out. So that's what very often happens. I mean, a typical one would be also a legacy systems, but that to me would be less of an issue. And also the banks, when they launch a digital bank, they would actually apply, and that's also a huge difference. They would apply the same criteria that they have for their core business, right? So 2 months into the business, show me your deposits, show me your how much revenue, show me your payback, and so on. Completely different discussions, and different challenges than the investor-led propositions would face, right? So the banks are facing questions that was, if these are your KPIs, they will suffocate you. Right. Whereas the investor ones, that are exactly as you said, they are looking at how many customers you have, how many, but for the first 3 years they are not touching your financials, right? You have a runway, with your with the cash you generated, go have fun. The existing banks don't have that. So
Yeah.
it's a much shorter term thinking.
No, that's the thing, right? Or maybe it's a benefit. Maybe it's actually the problem when you have investors that don't push you that much for profitability, but at the end of the day, that have to come. Whereas it might be a benefit to have a big bank behind you, but with a lot of capital, so maybe almost unlimited. But at the end of the day, they follow different KPIs, which can suffocate you as well. Interesting. So. If you should give to a new founder, either from actually from the normal startup world or from the corporate world, some tips and tricks, final tips and tricks, remarks that they should keep in mind.
Yeah, it's a very tough one.
One
But I
motivational
think,
sentence.
okay. One is build a brand that is not arrogant.
Uh-huh.
So if you build a brand that is truly friendly, it's not arrogant, people will forgive you. Customers will forgive you. If you build an arrogant brand, and I've seen this in the banking segment so much, right? You create a new a digital bank and say we want to be the number one digital bank in the world, right?
Mhm.
Customers cannot care less. They're but if you have a brand that really is there with you, with the customer and so on, then you don't have to be perfect because people will like you.
Yeah.
So
Awesome. Makes sense. That's actually a real valid point. Because then they would expect from you when you are like, "Hey, I will be the best." Okay, so how come you're not the best yet? Come on.
yeah, exactly.
Okay, Peter. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thanks
Uh,
for having me.